Okay, good. Hi, everyone. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about language assessment. Okay, we will discuss what that concept is. Okay, we'll see different kinds of assessment that we can have in the classroom. And finally, well, we'll try to see how that, in which ways that might be useful to us teachers. Okay. First of all, I am talking about this because, well, thanks to the Embassy of the US here in Argentina, I was awarded a scholarship to study different courses at the University of Oregon. Okay, I did this online. It was a great experience, and if I had to pay for the courses, it wouldn't have been possible for me to do them. But anyway, thanks to this scholarship, the embassy paid for the different courses. There were 4 different courses in total, and I did a specialization in assessment. Okay, but we are going to see what that assessment is about. Okay, so let's see the next slide. Okay, good. Well, as you can see here, I have a quotation from a teacher, okay, Sarah Kiff, and I'm going to quote her, okay. Never see my job as an educator as finished. It's always a work in progress, as am I. Sarah puts out what many of us might feel like in the classroom, okay? There is this this trend to move from what a teacher is or used to be towards a rather new concept that is the idea of an educator. Okay, we're supposed to be not only teachers but educators. Have you got an idea the difference between being a teacher or an educator? If you want to pitch in the chat room, we can talk about that. Okay, but do you have any ideas about the difference between an educator and a teacher? If so, please write. Otherwise, I'll keep on talking.
Recuerden, pueden escribir por el chat y si lo solicitan, les puedo habilitar el micrófono para comentar.
Okay. So, mainly, this idea of teachers and educators is not that they are one versus the other. It's like one concept is much bigger or wider than the other, right? This idea of a teacher generally implies that it's somebody who knows about something and he's teaching, he's giving away his knowledge about this subject in particular, okay? An educator, on the other hand, wow, thanks, Fernanda. Thanks, that's true. One includes the other. An educator is a much more general term, as you said. Thanks. Educator is something much bigger and wider because it's related to life skills, okay? It's like we are sharing or constructing or building life skills with students, okay? With those who are people who have the right to learn and have the right to grow in their lives, okay, to a better stage, and in that case they are building knowledge to achieve that what they are looking for, okay. And sometimes as teachers or educators, okay, we can have some questions, okay. We can have some questions. Sometimes we get into this reflective mood and we start asking questions to ourselves, okay, wondering. For instance, I have written some questions that I've been thinking about lately because of this course that I did with University of Oregon, okay. Luckily, they ignited much this curiosity inside of my own mind, and I started making questions to myself. And what was great about the course is that many teachers had the same questions, okay, and we wanted to share that curiosity and those questions to each other, okay. We wanted to share that and get to new answers, and sometimes we got to new questions too. Okay, so I believe that teachers are and educators, we are people who question everything. Okay, and if we can question things, that's great, because we can keep on learning. And as Sarah Keefe said, it is always a work in progress, as am I. Okay, I am a work in progress too, as a teacher, as an educator. Okay, so is there any way I can improve as a teacher? Would it be possible for me to improve as a teacher? Okay, if I have those questions, probably you, the ones who are participating in this webinar, you are people who have this question. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Okay, we wouldn't be sharing this time with all of us. Okay, because you believe that we can improve, that there are some things that we can still improve. Okay, we might be great teachers and great educators, but there are some things that we need to improve. Okay, is there any layer or field as a teacher I haven't developed? Well, probably. Okay, probably. Sometimes when we start reading about teaching and we start reading about, for instance, global education nowadays, it's like we have so many things to learn and so many things to, let's say, read again and again and again until we get to a satisfying answer. Okay, so there are many things. For instance, a few weeks ago, I was doing a course on global education, and they talked to me about frameworks and the Asian framework for global education, and I said, what's that? So I started to read, and then they talked about PISA framework, that I heard about it here in Tucumán, but I didn't know what that was. So I started to keep on reading, and I got some answers about that too. Another question that it has to do with the topic today. Do I want students to pass exams or to learn? Well, we may all say, okay, I want my students to learn. I want them to learn. But sometimes, and hand to heart, okay, we had to be sincere and say, okay, well, sometimes we just want them to pass the exams, okay? Sometimes we might feel like that, okay? But is that wrong? Is that right? Well, it's part of being a reflective teacher, okay? Do I feel students are motivated to learn? Well, that's another good question too, okay? Do I feel my students are really motivated to learn? Or as the questions above, they just want to pass the exam, okay? In any case, we have to be aware that being a teacher, being an educator, doesn't exactly have to do with passing exams or making students pass exams, but we have to somehow motivate them to learn, all right? That would be great for us as teachers to get students motivated. It's not only that it will make our jobs much easier, or we'll feel much better at schools, but it's also probably our real duty nowadays, okay, to help students feel motivated to learn. If we don't have a good time in class as teachers, as educators, probably our students would not be satisfied either in class. So let's hope to get to a better level of understanding of what's going on in the classroom so we can help our students feel motivated, okay? I hope that this webinar might help you, okay? I'm reading what Fernanda is writing. There are many ways we can improve. That's right, great, thanks so much, Fernanda, for your help here. She mentions topics such as motivation, assessment, feedback, different types. I need to have a multi-form lesson plan including those students who sometimes we have no idea how to get their attention since they have special needs. And probably our teaching training colleges, probably we were taught or we were instructed on how to work in the classroom. But as we all know, it is all in the books and it's all like cold letters there until we get in front of our students and they have a face and they have a name and they start questioning and they start asking, and probably we don't know sometimes how to go around in the classroom, but then we start learning once we have it, students. So teachers, can get a degree, but once we are in front of the students, we might have the chance to become educators. Not only somebody who gives away knowledge, but somebody who builds knowledge with the students. I have three words there: evaluation, tests, and assessment. There are different things, all right? Probably in Spanish, we tend to use them as the same thing, all right? But in English, they had different meanings, okay? Evaluation, tests, and assessment. Which one do you think is a broader term? Is it evaluation, tests, or assessment? What do you think is a broader term? Which one do you think it's a bigger concept? Evaluation, tests, or assessment? Well, evaluation is the bigger term, okay, the biggest of the three, okay? Evaluation is related to a whole process that goes on in the whole institution, okay? Evaluation is having criteria to decide on the whole system that's going on within an institution, okay? It's a very big term, although sometimes we use it as interchangeable with tests or with assessment, but it's not the same, okay? Evaluation is a much bigger term than the other two. Then we had the term tests. That's the smallest one, let's say. That's a tool. A test is a tool. It's a tool we might use to get information of what's going on in the classroom, okay? For instance, what my students might know about something, or how they are mastering a skill, for instance, or we can have some information about a certain topic or about a certain aspect of what's going on in the classroom, okay? And then we have the word assessment, okay, which is really difficult to translate into Spanish because it means there's no simple word to express that. But assessment is a process that goes on within a classroom, okay? And that process, we document knowledge, skills, attitudes, beliefs, something that's going on within the classroom, okay? A test may help us to assess what's going on in the classroom, but it's not all about tests, okay? There are different ways that we can get information, all right? That is in assessment. But it's not only that we get information or document this information or collect this information, but we also, when we talk about assessment, we're talking about scoring the information that we get, okay? Scoring it, interpreting that information, because we need to know what we're going to do with the information that we get, okay? So it's not only about getting a score by the end of the year, but probably in the meantime, we need to interpret the information that we get, okay? To interpret the information, but to do what? Well, that's something that we're going to keep on discussing, okay? How come not? How this assessment may help us as teachers, how this assessment may help our students, okay? I'm sure you all know about this, but probably we're just changing names. But what is important about sharing this is that we are reflecting upon our practices, which is a much more valuable thing than only learning by heart some concepts. We're starting to do something that is much more useful for our students, of ourselves, that is to reflect on our practice. Below evaluation, test, and assessment, I wrote something that was just for me to remind me to share something with you. There it says Creative Commons images. Well, I wanted to share something with you. I had this webinar prepared just a couple of weeks ago. Then I had a problem with my computer, and I had to take it to the computer workshop, and so I didn't have it. I don't have it. I don't have it yet. It's not ready yet, and I didn't do a backup of the PowerPoint and everything. My mistake, my big mistake. So I had to do it again. Okay, yesterday I couldn't get my computer, so I took my wife's computer and I started to work on this material again. And I decided to use Creative Commons images in all the slides. What's this? What are these Creative Commons images? Well, they're images that I can download from the internet, but they have the Creative Commons license. That is, they are free for us to reuse again and again. It's like instead of having copyright, as most of the images on the internet, and sometimes we use them, or we borrow them, or we almost steal them, we don't ask for to the real owner to lend them to us. But anyway, and we do that, and we don't feel embarrassed about that. But well, but I have learned, thanks to people from the social network called beluga.org, I learned that Creative Commons images are the ones that we can download from the internet and use them for free, and use them as many times as we want. They're open source material. There are also documents, there are also videos, etc., etc. But what is good is that when you prepare something, Creative Commons images, you don't have to feel the burden of using something that doesn't belong to you. These people, the ones who have Creative Commons licenses, they're so generous that they take pictures, they do documents, they prepare different kinds of material, and they're open for all of us to use them. And you can use them without without guilt, because you haven't done anything wrong by using them. So I wanted to share that with you. I'm going to use Creative Commons images throughout this presentation. Okay. Well, now that we are talking about evaluation, test, and assessment, well, we're going to develop this idea of assessment. Okay, there are mainly two broad categories. One category that has two big ideas about assessment. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, let's see if Gaston can move to the next one. Thanks. Well, this is first an idea. Okay, we have two ideas. One is assessment of learning. Okay. In assessment of learning, we have different things to consider. For instance, you see there is somebody there in the picture, in the black and white picture, to the left, and that person is a judge. It's a judge. You see, there we have a judge. The image is a very famous image of a television judge, but that's the role of a teacher in assessment of learning. Okay, as I told you before, assessment is the process by which we collect information. Okay, in assessment of learning, we collect our information in order to judge it. Okay, to say, okay, half of the classroom did right in the test or in the different instances of assessment that I offer them, and the rest of the students did well. Okay, so some will get a passing mark, some will not get a passing mark. Okay, that's probably the job of a judge, and well, that's what a teacher in assessment of learning is doing. Okay, is judging the material that they get from different moments in the classroom. Okay, so the teacher probably will be called La Bruja, or something like that, the witch, or something like that, because that's the role that he or she plays, all right, is that of a judge. Okay, and we don't want to be called that way, all right, but sometimes we have to play that role. Okay, it's not wrong, it's part of the job description as a teacher. Okay, that's assessment of learning. Then you have to the top right section of the slide, you have this person who has some pages on her hand. And what did I want to represent? Well, in assessment of learning, first of all, accountability is what matters. Okay, accountability is what matters. So you have to be accountable for what you're doing in the classroom. No, let's go back. Oops, something went wrong. It's okay. We're going back. Thanks. There. All right. So there you have this person who is accounting for what she has done, for instance, in the classroom. All right. So I got this it's when the teacher has to explain to somebody, could be a board of directors, could be a group of teachers, what she has done in the classroom and how well or not so well has been doing in the classroom with what she offered to the students. Okay, that's accountability. Okay, you have to be accountable for what you've been doing in the classroom. Okay, or what the students have been doing in the classroom. Okay, then in the in the bottom right corner of the slide, we had this idea of a rear mirror. Okay, because in assessment of learning, you have like a backward looking at what has happened in the classroom. Okay, you look to what happened, and then as a judge, you had to evaluate that, or you had to consider what's wrong or what's right, and you had to be accountable for that. Okay, so this all has to do with assessment of learning. Okay. It's something that we might be doing in the classroom, okay, because at some moment we had to give away score to students, we had to give away report card. So we judge what has been happening in the classroom, we take a backwards look at what has happened, and we also have to be accountable for that, because you know, nowadays, all of us teachers, when we put when we decide on a score for the student or on a grade, we had to explain why we think that that student has that grade. Okay, so we need to be accountable. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Let's go to the next one. Good, thank you. I'm moving the chat all the time so I can take a good look at the images. Well, there's something that when we talk about assessment of learning, we had to consider, and here is this, is here on this quotation by Scott Habib on the left of the slide. It says, there's a fundamental flaw. It presumes that the way you have been teaching is perfect and that any problems that exist are student-centered. Well, Scott Habib touches a very special and delicate spot here, because sometimes as teachers, we consider that students are the ones to be blamed. Okay, so if things are not working, it's not working out, it's because students are not putting their extra effort. If things are not working the way they're supposed to work, it's probably because students are not doing what they are supposed to do. As a teacher or as an educator, we are all questionable. Okay, in which sense? First of all, that we are questionable in a good sense, okay? In the idea that we should question ourselves. We should question ourselves. We shouldn't take that for granted that we are great teachers, but sometimes, and that's my personal opinion, I believe that we are the ones to think about what's going on in the classroom over and over and over again. Okay, some students might get involved, but not all of them, and not when we are talking about assessment of learning. Because if we are talking about assessment of learning, we'll say, okay, have the students have a passing mark? Some group has a very low mark, so they should go to, I don't know, to a teacher outside school. They should get a private teacher. They should do something different. Okay, they are the ones to be blamed, and probably the viewpoint should change. Okay, somehow we are not questioned, as I said, in a bad way, but probably we should be challenged about what's going on in our classroom and try to give an honest answer to that. Okay, remember the first slide we said, okay, is there any layer or aspect of my teaching that should be revised? Well, probably there are many things that we should revise and go over that and see if it's the students the one who are doing something wrong, or is it us, teachers, educators, who should change our viewpoint, our practices? Well, so if we believe that we've been teaching as perfect as, I don't know, whom, probably we should ask ourselves if there's any other way that would be better for us to get to a goal with students, okay? For instance, a learning goal, okay? Anyway, assessment of learning somehow puts forward this idea that the students are the ones who are in trouble, okay, or the ones that make mistakes, leaving the teacher aside as if the teacher were not perfect, but probably shouldn't be questioned, okay, but okay. So that's assessment of learning. Then we have another image, okay? Assessment of learning also might imply that we are comparing students, okay? We are comparing students. Somehow we have to, students should be compared among them, and somehow that's discouraging, okay? Because as Fernando said before, some students might have special needs, and actually all of them are special, okay? All of them are special. It's not like some are more special than the rest, but they are all special in the sense that they are all valuable people. They all have dreams to fulfill, that they all have things to go, places to visit, goals to achieve. As teachers and as educators, we are on their path. And somehow we had to help them achieve these goals and dreams. So with assessment of learning, somehow we are discouraging students from going to a better stage, or, okay, let's say, okay, I didn't get a good mark. There's another way than, okay, flunk the subject and do something else with my life, okay? And I'm not quite sure if that's the role of a teacher, okay? Then you can see at the bottom right side of the corner of the slide, you have the word outsiders. Well, I didn't have any image to put there, and as I told you, I wanted to find these Creative Commons images, and here we have a typing machine, and we have the word outsiders, because in assessment of learning, the tests are created by people who are outside the classroom, okay? Sometimes they are standardized tests, okay? Sometimes students have to face standardized tests and get a score or a grade on that, okay? They haven't been prepared by anybody in the region. They are not local. They might have references to places and people who students are not quite familiar with. That's part of assessment of learning, okay? And sometimes students have to face this sort of process and go through tests that have been created and written and prepared by people who are not in the classroom, not in the local region, not in their context. And it might be quite challenging for them in order to make up for what they might not know, not because they haven't studied, but because they have never been presented with that before, okay? So that's another thing that happens when we have this process of assessment of learning, okay? So let's go to the next slide. Thanks. Here we have things that I told you about, okay? Assessment of learning. It really focuses on accountability, okay? As a teacher, you need to be able to be accountable for what's going on in the classroom, okay? You have to be able to explain to other people what has happened and what kind of goals you reached and how you reached them, and to tell them if they have done well or not in this process. It has a backward looking because you have to look at what has happened. It compares students at a point because you had to tell them, okay, you got a 10, you got a 5, you got a 6, you got a passing mark, you didn't get a passing mark, and they start to compare each other and say, but what happened? The teacher is a judge, okay? It's the bruja de inglés, for instance, or brujo, or I don't know how they call us, viejo de inglés, all right? So sometimes we get those names. They are created and scored by outsiders, okay? The tools for this assessment of learning, they are created and scored by outsiders, and it might send a message to students that some of them are not smart enough, okay? Because they didn't get an acceptable mark or a passing mark, so that message can get through to students. There it says not, because assessment of learning doesn't motivate for improvement, doesn't motivate students for improvement, because you just show them what they did, if they did right or wrong, but there's nothing else. It doesn't help students, sorry for my typo there, it doesn't help students to know, sorry, another mistake, big mistake. Doesn't help students to know how to improve, because they are not given any sort of tool or process or insight that might help them to improve. And it doesn't give a growth mindset to students, okay? Assessment of learning alone might be quite discouraging for students, okay? It's like they are just in front of a blank wall where they have their score, their grading, and that's all, okay? So the teacher, for instance, might not answer during the process of teaching something how their students are doing, okay? If they are learning or not. Just get to the final point of the lesson, and you have what might be a test or some other way to assess how much they know about the subject or the learning goal or the learning point they're trying to achieve, okay? That's assessment of learning alone, okay? Let's go to the next slide. I don't know if you're too tired or you didn't want to, you don't want to talk, or you probably say, oh, I know everything about this, and this teacher Gonzalez making me feel more bored. I hope that you're not bored, okay? Because what I want to share mainly is that as teachers, we need to reflect, and reflecting is one of our greatest tools in the classroom, and that we can feel much, much more powerful if we reflect on our practice, because we can get to know what is good about our practice, and we get to know what we need to improve in our practice, okay? Assessment for learning, as you can see, there's a difference in preposition there. One was assessment of learning. Now we can talk about assessment for learning. Well, thanks, Fernanda. That's great. You can have a different perspective of assessment. That's right. Assessment for learning. Well, as you can see, the role of the teacher is the one on the left of the slide, okay? I couldn't find a better picture to show that teachers are facilitators, okay? We are not judges in assessment for learning, but we're facilitators. That is, a teacher wants to facilitate knowledge for our students, okay? We want to help students to learn, okay? Not only to pass exams, but to learn, okay? So teachers become facilitators. We help them, we grow with them, we help them to do different things, and we will keep on talking about the things that we can help them in this idea of assessment for learning, because we need to assess, we need to know what's going on in the classroom, but we also need to interpret what's going on in the classroom, okay? We need to be able to read what's going on in the classroom, okay? In order to get not only collecting data, but what we do with that data is what matters, okay? It's not only getting to the end of the year and say, okay, a quarter of my students didn't pass the tests. We need to go somewhere and have a deeper reading of what's going on, okay? So teachers as facilitators are a role that are very much in fashion nowadays when we listen to people talking about being a teacher, educator. But it's not only that we facilitate things, but we get involved in the process, okay? It's not only teaching, but learning at the same time, okay? I'm sure all of you do that. I'm sure of that. Okay, I'm really sure about that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, because you question yourselves at some point. I hope that you can feel much more secure, and you feel that stronger and much more powerful when you see, okay, I do that. I'm a facilitator in the classroom, not a judge, but a facilitator. Okay, then you have at the top right side of the On the slide, you have somebody measuring something, okay? That image, as I told you, I wanted to find something that would represent measuring improvements, okay? The idea of the assessment for learning is that teachers may measure improvement, okay? We can see what's happening in the classroom, and we can measure what things are improving in the classroom, okay? What kind of things are getting better in the classroom, which students are moving forward, okay? And how they are moving forward, okay? Because not only that, okay, good, students passed the exam, that's great, okay, let's go to the next unit. No, okay, they improved, they learned. How they did it? That's a good question. See, how did our students learn? Okay, was it because I used lots of visuals? Was it because, I don't know, I read them in English and I did a lot of facial expressions and I did it with a great intonation? Was it that they wanted to learn about this topic and that's why they learned? Was it that this time students had enough time to do their tasks? So all those questions might help us to measure how our students are improving, okay? And at the same time, we get to know what's going on with some that are not improving, okay? But so assessment for learning might help us take a different look at our student, at our classroom, and somehow start to build some method that students might be able to grasp and use and continue learning, because we're showing them how they are improving, okay? It's not only, okay, quarter of the students passed, quarter of the students didn't pass. It's, okay, 3/4 of the classroom passed. Why? How was that possible? Was it that I was better teacher than before? Was it that they were paying more attention? Was it the topic? Was it the way they were taught? Was it the way they worked with the learning goal? Okay, how did they learn, okay? We need to measure improvements. And that's how, and even for a teacher, for an educator, that might make us feel much, much better, because we can finally grasp something that is good for the student and that is good for us too, okay? So, you know, somehow it helps us to have a higher self-esteem too. Why not? Then you have at the bottom image of the bottom section of the slide, you have this man looking forward, okay? In assessment for learning, the idea is that you look forward to what's going on next in the classroom, okay? So somehow we start to see what's going to happen in the classroom, and we somehow make a more advanced step towards that. And we are not only thinking about what happened, but also what's going to happen, okay? And we can do some sort of a renewal, for instance, of our lesson plan. We can change our lesson plan if it's needed. We can be more flexible, or we can see, okay, there's some ways that we can improve what's going on in the classroom, okay? Because there is still time to improve, okay? So this doesn't happen at the end of the year, but this happens in the middle, in the first term, second term, okay, in different moments during the school year, okay? Let's go to the next slide. Let's go to the next. Thanks. Okay, it also transmits a message that help is available, okay? That as teachers, we are available for students, okay? That we can help them. Okay, it's not only that teacher as a judge who's there to see what's going on, but also we are monitoring. And we are monitoring and we are helping students to move a little bit forward, okay, towards, for instance, a goal, a learning goal in this case. Then you had this woman who's going to take a picture. Okay, nowadays students are really, well, we're all caught by this idea of selfies and all this, and taking great pictures to share them in the social networks. Well, this picture, I chose this picture because it talks about somehow self-reflection, okay? Students, when we're talking about assessment for learning, we are helping students to know how they learn and how they can learn better, okay? At some point, it's needed to have some sort of feedback, peer feedback, teacher, student, teacher feedback, okay? Or the students might have some sort of insight within their own learning processes so they can get to know how they learn better, okay? Nowadays, as educators, we're facing not only teaching a subject, but we need to help students to learn and to know how they can learn, okay? On the left, it says assessment. Want to collect data on how children are learning? Know them, watch them, listen to them, talk with them, sit with them, be with them. Joe Bower. Okay, this educator puts this forward. Out here, Fernanda has pitched in. So we can facilitate and encourage students to measure progress through other types of activities or using a different type of assessment rather than just correcting them right or wrong. Thanks a lot, Fer. We sometimes focus on written or oral corrective or incorrect feedback. That's true. So we need some other kinds of feedback, okay? And we're going to see that on the next slide, please. Gaston. Okay, here it says, assessment for learning, measures improvement. You can look forward, helps improve students' work. The teacher is a facilitator, okay? The ways that we can assess what's going on in the classroom is informal, might be informal, and it's teacher created. So somehow we create tools for our classroom, for our specific classroom, that we can use the same tool in other classrooms, but it's not done by outsiders. It was written and created by us, by teachers in the classroom. Helps students to know what to do to improve. Okay, so students get to know some sort of feedback to know what's going on and how they can improve what's going on in the classroom for them. Here, some words that I wrote. Motivation. Thanks to assessment for learning, students feel motivated to learn more and to learn a better way. Commitment. Students and teachers are working together so they can feel committed to a goal. We're activating knowledge. It's not only receiving knowledge, but we're activating it. Okay. Soft skills. Well, this is a word that you might have heard at different contexts. They talk about hard skills, soft skills. Hard skills somehow is the knowledge that you need to do something, okay, to take a task and get it done, okay? For instance, if you're an engineer, if you're a doctor, you're a teacher, you need certain hard skills, okay? You need to know some things, but also soft skills are things that are not probably taught in an explicit way, but nowadays we need to teach those skills too. Which are the soft skills? For instance, creativity. Okay, we need to help students to innovate somehow in their lives. Okay, curiosity. Okay, soft skills such as collaboration. Students need to learn, and we as teachers need to learn how to collaborate, how to do collaborative work. Okay, which is not group work. Okay, collaborative work is different. Okay, each one has something to pitch in the group. That's collaborative. Okay, that's collaborative. Okay, we are putting in what we have, and we need to help them know and learn what they do have. Okay, instead of only what they are lacking. They need to know what they have. If they have talent, they have different sort of gifts that they can share with the rest of the students. Okay, and so we have communication, also soft skills. Students need to communicate. That's great because we're talking about a foreign language, and we want students to communicate. But well, how can we help them communicate? Okay, and we have creativity. We have critical thinking. Okay, or design thinking. Okay, how can students start to think in a different way? Okay, critical thinking. They don't need just to say yes or no to everything that we say, but start to think about it and somehow start to question in a good way, in a good manner, what they are receiving and how they can improve. And the concept of global education nowadays, something that might be quite in fashion. I felt that I didn't know anything about that when I did this course like 2 weeks ago. And I learned a lot about different frameworks that we have nowadays for global education. And I really think that it's not only that English is the language for communication all over the world, but also knowing that English is our means of communication, and it's like the the first step for many people to be able to share with the rest of the world. So it's like we teachers of English as a foreign language, it's like we are a great commandment. We had to be really committed to help our students communicate, because it's the 21st century and they cannot communicate with the world without a foreign language, in this case, English. Okay, and let's hope for the students to learn a second foreign language. But the first step is English, okay? So even though we have just 2 or 3 periods a week, or sometimes we can have 4, or we can have more time, but it's essential for students nowadays and for all of us, okay? Let's go to the next slide. We're almost getting to the end, so you can rest. Well, it says, when the cook tastes the soup, that's formative assessment, okay? Because there are 2 other things that we can talk about assessment, formative and summative, okay? When the cook tastes the soup, that's formative assessment, okay? As teachers, we are like cooking the classroom, and we taste the soup in the middle of what we are doing to see if it's going well or not, okay? If it's salty, if it has a good taste, okay? We're doing that in the meantime, okay? While the soup is being cooked, okay? But when the customer tastes the soup, that's summative assessment, okay? So the soup is done, and that's the end. So we get summative assessment. That is assessment that might help us get to, for instance, a report card, okay? A report card by the end of the year, okay? That's what Paul Black proposes. Okay, let's see the next one. The next slide, and we're almost getting to the end, I promise that. Okay, we want your feedback, and what I mean by that is that students want our feedback, and as Fernanda says, there are different ways to get feedback. Rubrics are great tools for providing feedback to students, okay? Rubrics are somehow, we tell them what we expect from the students in the task, and we can show them, okay, if we do certain things, you get this grade. If you do more, you get that other grade until you get an excellent grade. And by means of rubric, we can give feedback to the students in the process of getting the task done, and they can improve that task until they get a final version, okay, of the task. So rubrics are great from teacher to students, but also we need feedback from students to teacher. And as you can see on the right, it says, there you have a janitor, okay, and on the screen it says, good afternoon, please rate our toilet, okay, so to see how well she did cleaning, okay, and you had different grades for that, okay. Sometimes with very little help, with very little material, we can get feedback from our students, even though they might be young and they might not use the language a lot. We can get feedback from our students, and if they as they master the language a little bit more and more, we can keep on asking for more feedback from the students, okay, and to see if our tasks are good or not, if they are learning or not, if they can tell us, and we need that, okay, we need that sort of information. So we want your feedback in the sense that teachers need feedback from the students too, and the students want feedback from the teachers as well, and the teachers need the feedback, okay. Let's go to the next one. To the last, I believe that's the last slide. Okay, obviously, thank you. Thank you very much for being around for an hour almost, for taking time to think about what we do in the classroom. Okay, thanks, Fernanda. Peer feedback, teacher feedback, it's always positive feedback. So thank you so much. Thank you, Fernanda. Thank you, each of you. Thank you. Now that we are a few, we can say thank you, Paola. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Fernanda. Obviously, thank you to Winton International, because they have provided us with some time to reflect on our daily task. And okay, there you have my Instagram, my Facebook.